So welcome everybody. Once again, my name is Chris Jansen from TriathleteMind.com, along with Kevin Koskela from TriSwimCoach.com. And
Hey everyone, welcome to the webinar.
we've got a lot of content to dive into, so let's dive into it. What we wanted to share for you to begin with was what the aim of today is, what the aim of today's webinar is. And the first thing is what we're really going to focus on, our outcomes for today, is to focus on what really makes the difference. There's a lot of things, as we know, that we need to consider and think about when we are swimming, let alone swimming in a triathlon race, let alone an open water triathlon. And we want to help you to really focus on what's going to make the biggest difference for the most people. We also want to give practical strategies and tips that you can put into practice right away, based on our experience from coaching hundreds of triathletes and getting them over some of the biggest challenges that they have. What we're going to include tonight will help you prepare for your next race, absolutely. And our ultimate aim is to reduce the uncertainty, build your confidence, and create a positive anticipation for your next swim, whether that be training or racing. So Kevin, you want to just give them some tips to get the most out of this webinar, the time we have with them?
Yeah, sure. So the first thing you want to focus on the specific area that you need to improve. It's hard to do more than one thing at a time, so just get to that one thing that you want to improve right away. And then decide which idea or strategy or tip you'll apply the next time you swim. So it's important to put that into practice immediately or as fast as you can. And definitely take notes. It'll help you to remember things when you get in the pool later. And then just, again, put it in practice. I mean, we just said this, but the next time you swim, which will be today or tomorrow, put exactly what you learned into practice. The survey results, we've done surveys, and there have been many surveys done out there, and open water swimming is normally typically the #1 worry of triathletes. So that's kind of why we put this together. We want to help you guys kind of get over that worry. And some of the things that happen are the regularly underwhelming race days that throw you off for your race. So this happens to a lot of people. It's very common, and you get tired on the bike and the run, and it all starts with the swim. So then when you're struggling and getting bumped by competitors, sometimes even hit or kicked, then you're start to go to drowning or anger or other emotions that can really hurt your race. And then there's trouble with breathing, and this is my #1 question that I get all the time on TriSwimCoach, not getting enough air or even going into hyperventilation, and that will really your entire swim race and then your entire triathlon. And then there's losing energy, just going slower or going further than necessary because you're zigzagging or going off course. And that, of course, will leave you disappointed and disheartened when you go right into the transition area. So this is, we're trying to help you overcome those feelings and get to some positive feelings once you're getting out of the swim in your race.
So Kevin, why is it that...
So why do most triathletes struggle?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. Why is it that most athletes struggle with open water swimming? What are your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, there's a few reasons why this happens. And do you want to go to the next bullet?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first one is training for open water swimming. A lot of people go about it in the wrong way. They're going about it like they are training for a bike or a run. And that doesn't work for swimming. Swimming is completely different than biking and running because you can follow this generic advice and tips. You have to have specific tips that are specific for your current situation and your unique challenges. So that doesn't, so going into it like with the idea, I'm just going to swim harder, I'm just going to swim more distance or add yards to my workout won't help. So, and they're not addressing the core problem. And let's talk about what that core problem is. So despite regular training and putting in the effort, the real issue isn't fully understood or being effectively resolved. So again, you're going about it with putting on fins, using a pull buoy, kicking with a kickboard, swimming harder, trying to keep up with lanes. All these things don't help you get better and get faster and overcome the challenges that you're facing. So what's really needed here is an accurate understanding, a specific strategy, and developing the key skills that are specific to you. not specific to, or not a generalized workout plan that's not really going to help you get to where you want to go.
Yeah, I've experienced the exact same thing with the people that I've worked with and the athletes that have come to me for some assistance on more on the mental side, and realizing that they really need some specific tips that are applied directly to them. So what we've identified here is what we refer to as the SMART way. And that's really the combination of both the physical and mental skills that swimmers need to eliminate the things that are holding them back and to focus on what matters most. There's so many things to think about, and we want to really help you to pinpoint what are some of those core things. And the reality is, and that's why Kevin and I are working together on this, is because we know that a lot of swimming it's a mental thing, and that underpins a lot of what you do. So let's dive into what we look at when we talk about this SMART way. And we look at the acronym SMART. The first S of SMART is about having a strategy. And specifically, it's the specific approach needed to meet your goals and to effectively resolve your core problem, whether that's your weakest link, the biggest barrier that's holding you back, or the thing that's really slowing you down. So, Kevin, do you want to explain a little bit more about what we mean here?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of misconceptions about when people are swimming, training for swimming, about what their core problem is. So you want to look for symptoms and identify the cause. So what are some of the hints and the clues? So we put together a list that are typically what people, typically what they go through in terms of the problems, and then what they think that maybe the problem, or what really is cause. So a symptom, like an example would be going slow, and typically the cause is a technique issue. It's not about training harder or training more or faster or anything like that. So going off course, that's a pretty common one. I'm sure people on this call can relate to that. Actually, if you want to raise your hand, I'm going to go through these. If you want to just go to your panel there and raise your hand if you experience any of these symptoms that I'm listing, that would be great. So going off course, and that would be, the cause of that would be not sighting or not sighting properly. Okay, we got some hands going up for that. And then the next one is legs, and that's a balance issue. It's a lot of people are wondering why their legs are sinking, and typically because they're not balanced in the water. And there's a lot of drills that we can do and things that we can practice to get you up on the surface of the water, as opposed to having your legs sink and having them act like anchors, as opposed to helping you go forward. So the next thing is anxiety and nerves, and we all get this at races, especially, and going into the swim, there's a lot of that. Uh, and the cause of that is going to be the self-talk and the focus, and we're going to get into that a little bit more in a couple of the points that we're going to make. The next one would be frustration, and that all goes back to your expectations of the race and of your performance. So if you're expecting to be right in the middle of the pack and you're falling way behind, that could lead to a lot of frustration, but maybe that's okay. Maybe going a little slower is okay, because your best is going to be on the bike and on the run. So yeah, we got some hands up on that one. So the last one is being out of breath, and we all experience this one too. I experience it all the time on the open water, and that comes to breathing technique. If you're not practicing your breathing technique, it's easy to get out of breath, and some people do the thing where they're trying to do things they've never done in practice, like, for example, bilateral breathing. It's great to know how to do that, but if you don't know how to do it in the race, you're much better off breathing every 2 strokes, getting as much air as you can.
Yeah,
So
I agree with those points, Kevin. And I think the breath is an interesting one where we often look at other competitors in the water, and it kind of looks like they're doing okay, and that they're fine. You feel like you're the only one who is in this hyperventilation mode. But the truth is, it happens for most triathletes. So what else do we want to say about the kind of the key things to focus on from a strategy point of view?
yeah, and I mentioned this, but we'll get into it a little bit. The training is not putting in more hours or going to the pool. It's not, again, it's not like running or biking where you just need to put in the time. It's more about building specific skills, strength, and it's more about building specific skills, and then there's strength, and then there's speed and endurance, and those are separate things. So you want to focus on one thing at a time, and always keep this in mind, that technique always trumps speed and endurance, especially when it comes to open water swimming, and especially when it comes to triathlon, because you've got a lot more to go after your swim. So as you hone that technique, as you get better, then you can start to add distance. But if you do it too soon, you can actually reinforce some of the issues that you were experiencing before, and it could actually get worse. So, and again, emphasizing quality over quantity is so important with swimming, even more than cycling and running. So skills you need are the physical and the mental, and that's why we wanted to put these two things together in this webinar to teach you both sides of this. Because if you don't have both, open water swimming is really going to be difficult.
Yeah, and through all the literature that I've seen out there, and one of the reasons that I created TriathleteMind, because I realized that there's a need for people to really understand more on the mental side, and that leads us directly into the M of SMART, and the M stands for mindset, and that is we're all going to have a mindset. We all have it. The question is it serving you in the best way? And when we talk about mindset, that really means the set of assumptions. Whoops, there we go. Sorry about that. It's a set of assumptions, attitudes, the point of focus you have, and the meaning that you give whatever is going on around you that determines how you're going to approach and respond to situations. And when we talk about mindset, it's not just about being positive, especially when you're in an environment can be very hard to predict. Certainly, positive is better than negative, but what we're going to help you get is a little bit more pinpoint, a little more sharp on this mindset, which can underpin almost everything that happens to you, even when you're feeling those nerves or some jitters before being surrounded by other great swimmers. And the way I look at it with mindset is I often refer to it as the success pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid is the results that we're after, the thing that we want to get. And the reality is that sometimes we get so focused on the results and we forget that the end goal is really just a result of the actions that we take. And so it's all the actions that you take that are going to lead to those results. And those actions, what I mean by actions could be your technique and the development of that technique, or the quality of the execution of your stroke and your kick and your breathing. It's also the consistency of training. How often do you have a reason or maybe an excuse to skip some training or not really put in that full effort? It's a big difference between being in the pool and really working in the pool. And sometimes our minds goes elsewhere. We bring a lot of baggage or stress or other distractions into the pool. And that also influences how we respond to different challenges. If our session's not going so well, or in a race specifically, is when we do hit a challenge, how do we respond? And the reality is, if you really want to take better actions more consistently, you've got to understand what's driving those actions. And what underpins all the actions you take in swimming and in running and in cycling and in life in general is that it's your emotions and your thoughts. And we've got some just generic points here, but it really captures, what is your state of motivation at that point in time? Are you have any worries that you're focusing on or thinking about? And are you bold, confident, or are you a little hesitant in your confidence? All the subtle differences in here can make a big difference and directly influence, because you know what you need. You might know what you need to do, but if you're not executing it in high quality, there's something that's holding you back. So we want to help you to understand that a little bit more. And ultimately, what this comes down to is, where are you focusing is a key part of that. So when we
Yeah, and I
talk,
just wanted to point out, Chris,
go ahead.
one thing I wanted to point out there on that slide is that the emotions that are at the base of that, emotions and thoughts are at the base. And so just the way it goes up, people think they have to do technique or they have to do speed or whatever it is, but really starting with this is a great way to go.
Yeah, thanks for adding that, Kevin. That's a good point. So the question we have for you as a those who are watching this presentation is, where are your thoughts directed in general and also in specific moments? I mean, are they directed to performance cues, those things that actually directly influence your performance, like your stroke, like your quality of your catch, or the rhythm that you're in? Or is it, does your mind wander too much? Does it wander too much to other competitors or the weather or other more negative thoughts? Are you focusing on things that are within your control or not? When we start to focus on things that are outside of our control, that can be very energy draining for us. And whether they're empowering or disempowering thoughts, what are you focusing on? Positive or negative things? Are you bringing yourself back into focus effectively? And are you doing the things that are going to fuel you, or are you thinking about things that are going to drain you? And of course, there isn't a perfect answer within this. And we all have those moments where our minds wander. But what if you could take 10% of that wandering time, or 20%, or maybe 50% of that wandering time, unfocused, or thinking about things that are outside of your control? And what if you're able to switch those back over to things that really propelled you through the water and also gave you a sense of confidence to handle the moment or to handle what's coming up in front of you, and also to calm you before you get in that water? So really what we're talking about here is the development of your target really should be a performance mindset. And that's very different from a nervous mindset or an uncertain mindset. And so there's lots of different components within that performance mindset, but one thing to think about is to begin with is, where are your thoughts directed going down this list? And if you brought out a pen and paper in your notepad and just started to write down what are some of the things that you did focus on that really help you, or in those moments where you are really focused, what were you focusing on? And also in those, compare that to the moments where you find yourself really drifting mentally away. And where does your mindset end up in that situation? So we want you to think about developing a performance mindset. And that is a close combination. It works hand in hand with the third point. And the third point is then under the A is avoiding anxiety and frustration, just like this little pup here. Well, how many people on the line? Put your hand up. Just hit the little hand selector if you've ever had that thought of, oh my God, something just touched my leg. And where does that go? Yeah, that tends to be a popular one we can see.
Yeah, it got shared a lot. I put it on my Facebook page, and I got a few hundred shares on this one. So
Yeah, you can never go wrong with a desperate puppy to get shared around Facebook. That's for sure. And really, what the point is here, and back to the point that Kevin raised earlier, is that it's your emotions and your thoughts that underpin, that are the base, the foundation for your performance. And the truth is that you have more control over your feelings than you give yourself probably credit for. And this is the area where my focus has been, is really helping people to not only just avoid anxiety and frustration, but really develop a razor sharp mentality and mindset that they consistently go to, that really fuels their performance regardless of the situation or even maybe the uncertainty around it. So what do we mean by this? The reality is that anxiety and frustration, or other negative feelings for that matter, it directly influences your technique, speed, efficiency, and obviously your enjoyment. If your muscles are tense or you become a little hesitant, then obviously your technique is not going to be at its optimal way. And of course, we recognize as well that people that have joined us here we have people who have been in triathlon for over 10 years, done dozens and dozens of races, and we have some that are new beginners. And so what Kevin and I have both learned is that the length of experience someone has in triathlon and open water swimming doesn't really have much of a direct impact on how they cope within this area. And so what we're not saying is this is only to get you to become a high performance elite, almost Olympian or winning your age group skills. If that's your goal, we'd love to help you get there. But the reality is that all we are really looking to is to help you to improve from where you are today and have more enjoyment through that. So some subtle adjustments and some subtle tweaks to your approach can really make a big difference. You don't have to be the fastest, but maybe just being faster will give you a lot of satisfaction. And the truth is that the point that underpins this is that all your emotions come from your thoughts. The challenge, of course, is sometimes you're not aware of those thoughts. And sometimes it goes into more of our subconscious mind rather than our conscious mind. And we have created some habits that even before the race starts, we get these real jitters, especially when they were surrounded by other strong swimmers or more people who are more experienced in open water. That we're okay in the pool, but as soon as we get in front of other people, some thoughts start to boil up, and sometimes we're not aware of them. So the point here is to say, rather than hoping you're going to feel good on race day, hoping that all the hours in the pool are going to pay off, we would encourage you to create those feelings proactively rather than just hoping. So how do you do that? Well, it's a simple thought. I know it's maybe a little harder to do if you're not used to doing it. But the simple question is, how would you describe your optimal state? What three emotions, maybe two or three emotions, do you want to feel at the start line? If you want to just drop these into the chat window or the question window on your side panel there, we'd love to hear what some of your thoughts are. But if you could describe, if you had to narrow it down to 3 words, 3 feelings that you would feel at the start line of a race, what would those 2 or 3 be? And I've given you some examples here. They don't have to be the ones that are here. Everyone's going to be slightly different. It could be confident and strong. It could be calm, pumped, or excited. Yeah, so Jasmine wants to be calm and confident. Bo's looking to be pumped. Ah, Christine, nice. Gratitude. That's a great emotion to embrace at the start. Feel ease, appreciative. Nice. So it's a really nice mix we have here. And this really just goes to say that it is going to be unique to you. And so when you decide what that is, then you can start to do things that can make you feel that proactively by reflecting on some times when you've done that way before. And there are actually skills you can develop. We don't have time to go into them tonight, but there are specific skills you can develop to help create these feelings more quickly and have them with you at will, including while you're swimming sometimes as well. So give that some thought. What are your 3 emotions that you can take forward and think about what you can do to actually create those proactively? And that's something absolutely you can train yourself on every single training session. Anything else you want to add there, Kevin, or should we move on to the next point?
No, it's good. I'm really excited to see all the different emotions there people are listing. That's really encouraging.
Yeah, great. So a couple other points to talk about here is whether it's anxiety and frustration or whether it's just some other mind games that come up. One of the ways to avoid this is to win those mind games. And when I say the mind games, that's really the stuff that goes on in your head. That stuff that goes on with that inner dialogue. And one of the most common ones we see is what I refer to as the self-doubt psych-out, is that we start to question ourselves a lot. That can be on race morning, it can be in the transition zone before the race, and sometimes it can happen during the race as well, and that really throws you off. So self-doubt psych-out is not the time to focus on all the training sessions you missed. It really is time to focus on all the training sessions you had, and especially focusing on the great sessions you had. Trust the facts. Trust the facts on what you have done well, but also trust the facts. If you're unsure about being in the open water, trust the facts that there are safety marshals there. That if you tune into your technique, that's where your focus really needs to go. And when you have something really specific that you can focus on, that doesn't leave a lot of room for you to engage your mind in other conversations, other conversations with yourself. And I often refer to it as counterpunching that inner demon. And what I mean by that is sometimes we come up with some really bizarre or disempowering thoughts. And really those thoughts that really drag us down if we were to really dwell on them. And I like to think of the metaphor of counterpunching that inner demon. That when part of you says, I'm going to really panic out there, or there's no way I'm as good as everyone else. Well, that's just a thought. It doesn't mean you have to believe it. And the counterpunch is really coming up with, as soon as you hear yourself say that, what's the counterpunch? What's the counter thought that you can fill your mind with? Maybe that is, I'm prepared and I'm ready. Maybe that is, I can handle it. Maybe that is, I'm ready to rock. Or maybe that is, I'm a rock star. Whatever it is for you. Whatever it is for you, you want to have something quick that you can go to in your mind. And again, this is something you can practice in training when those weird or wonderful things that your inner demon comes up with. The second thing that we often see is this thought, and we put it definitely in quotation marks, of this fear of dying out there. When you no longer have the pool walls to hang on to or the ropes to hang on to, that can be daunting or maybe even intimidating at times, even for the most experienced. So again, that's allowing yourself to play these mind games, to entertain these thoughts. And just because you think it doesn't mean you have to believe it. And that doesn't mean you have to dwell on it either. So you want to find the most empowering, positive, or even I think sometimes people overlook is the power of neutral thoughts. It doesn't mean you have to tell yourself this is going to be great and I'm going to be so happy and excited. The reality is you might have a lot of competitors around you and it's going to be a challenging day. But a neutral thought sometimes is even better than a negative thought. Neutral thought meaning I can cope with this, I'll give it my best, and if I need to, I can slow down just a little bit and maybe adjust my stroke a little bit. So that's more of a neutral thought. It's not pumping you up, but for those who are really challenged in this area, we'd encourage you to be okay with thinking neutrally, but giving yourself something very specific you can go to that can help you manage your state. And part of that is knowing your get out card. Some basic things that if you do get into trouble or out of breath, hyperventilating, etc., or get maybe bumped harder than you'd like, is to practice in training, turning on your back or changing to a breaststroke or just being aware of where the safety marshals are. So to know that proactively in advance is really key. And the last point we'll say in here is you can really manage your emotions by setting some realistic expectations. And I kind of mean optimistic realism. And that is that, as Kevin said earlier, your frustration usually comes from the meaning you give a situation and the gap versus your expectations. So sometimes we think that we put in such hard training, we trained really well that we should always be getting a personal best on race day. But sometimes the weather isn't great, or some competitors get in our way, and that can be really frustrating. And also sometimes we can be frustrated that we're not progressing as fast as we would like to, despite our training. And really drawing on frustration or getting to that point where you really become filled with frustration doesn't really help you. So you really want to think about how can you turn your attention to the things that matter, back to what Kevin mentioned earlier. Maybe you need to focus more on your technique or get some guidance on your technique, and we'd love to help you out with that. And then the last thing I'll say is managing emotion with positive coping strategies. So learn some of the key areas. I often refer to them as your vital victories, those key 3 or 4 points in a race where you really want to be fully engaged and fully attentive to what your options are. So the start is one where the crush of a MASH swim start is a challenge for a lot of people. And the positive coping strategy is to be more assertive and not passive, and certainly not aggressive. Don't be one of those guys or one of those girls. So there's a few things to think about there. And again, as we said, think about the ones that apply to you directly. What's going to help you address some of that core challenges that you have? And if you have any questions, you can drop them into our question box. But just remember that anxiety and frustration come from your thoughts. You change your thoughts, you change your focus, you change how you feel. And that's a first starting point. So Kevin, you want to take us through the R of SMART?
Yeah, sure. The R is going to stand for race, and we're calling it race plan. And so predetermine a specific approach to execute the details necessary to feel successful. So when you have this, you'll have more confidence going in. You have a plan. So, and I'm going to go over this pretty fast, but we are going to have this on recording. We're going to send out the recording later, so if you miss anything, you can look at it again. So you want to prepare your approach and routine, whatever that means to you. And that means attention to detail is going to be the most important thing. Because the last thing you want is to be stuck on race day and have something go wrong that you could have easily prepared for. How will you wear your goggles? That's an interesting thing because it's a really popular topic among triathletes. As far as how do you put them under the cap, do you put them over the cap, and what type of goggles and how do you adjust them, things like that. Those are all things that you need to prepare ahead of time, and that'll save you so much stress and anxiety when you get there at the start. And then are there landmarks to use for navigation? It's really important to know the course, just see what the course is and what you can use as a landmark. And that's one of the reasons why I like warm-up, getting in the water for warm-up before a race, because you can kind of see which direction you're going to be going and what's possibly on the land that you can use and what's around you and on either side of you. So how will you set up your transition area? That's going to be a key factor in cutting down on that anxiety as well. And I mentioned warm-up. I recommend getting in the water and doing a warm-up. A lot of people just skip that, or they just do a little jogging and their muscles are warmed up and that's good enough. But if you get in the water, your body's used to the temperature and you're kind of just used to that environment. And if for a reason you have no time to get in the water, you can splash some water in your face. I mean, that's even going to adjust you a little bit. So, and then we all have rituals, and we can create rituals to keep calm and feel like we're in control. And whatever that is for you. For me, it's deep breathing. I have a specific technique that you count your breaths in, you hold your breath for a few seconds, and then you exhale for a few seconds. And everyone's got their thing, and even the pros have some really unique things that they do at the beginning of a race or before a race that keep them calm and ready to go. So, and then decide what type of race is this for you. Is this going to be your A race? Is this the one that you're targeting for the year, or is this a B race, which would be something that's you're kind of getting ready for your A race. So you can experiment with things in a V race a little more than if you're assuming your A race. So that's going to change how you approach it and what you do in the swim.
Yeah, and I'll just add in here, Kevin, and the points that we're mentioning here are not meant to be exhaustive, not to be all the things you should be thinking of, but it's just really just to prompt your thinking of how is your approach to this race going to be. It goes back to your strategy as well, but just use this as a prompt to think about, well, what are some of the details that I maybe sometimes overlook? And if I created my own little checklist beforehand, then that could be a really helpful thing to get me into this regular routine, which helps me save energy and helps me stay calm and prepared or excited before the race. So I'll let you continue on, Kevin.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. So then I mentioned race your race, so specific to you. You don't want to get caught up in what everyone else is doing. Whether it's you're thinking about that or you're trying to keep up with somebody. It's very easy to do, and I think we all do that, but it's much better to just stick with what your plan is. And then you get into your rhythm and your technique. It's ideal to get into some sort of a rhythm fairly early in the race, because at the beginning you're probably just trying to get to that rhythm, and that may take a few hundred yards. But once you get in there, stick to the rhythm. Try to stay with your technique as much as you can. It's going to be a little different in the race because a lot of it's navigation, trying to get air, things like that that might change your technique a little bit. And then there's of course your weird preferences, which can vary. My thing was always goggle color, so certain colors for certain days, and also just how you wear your goggles and where they are and things like that. So
Yeah, and I think the reason we use the phrase weird preferences as well, sometimes the start of a race or a triathlon event, it turns into this social experiment. And everyone's trying to fit in and wonder if they're as geared up or as cool or doing the right things as everyone else is. And the point here is just do what you need to do. If you're really challenged on being next to competitors, then start out really wide. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about what other people might think or other people might say. And if same thing with your warm up as well. I've had some people that I've worked with who get really cold in the water, really cold, especially in the early mornings, even before they get into the water. And so, simple thing that he started doing was wearing a warm sweater on top of his wetsuit, and he would take it off at the last second before he had to get into the water. And he felt a little weird doing that because no one else had a sweater on, and people would ask him about it. But the reality is, if that's what works for him, then that's fine. That's about racing your race.
yeah, and the next one, planning your responses is so important, and this is at any level, whatever level you are. It's so important to do this. Don't expect perfection. Just be prepared to respond to adversity. And a good example of this, of how to do this, Michael Phelps, who I think most people here have probably heard of, um, multi-world record holder in many events. And his one of his things that he did in practice was he would fill his goggles up halfway full of water and just swim like that for a while and get used to that feeling. Because for him, he was preparing for any possible situation that could happen during a race. And so if that happened, he could easily transition into a smooth race. And a funny thing is, his 100 butterfly in the 2008 Olympics, that actually happened. And that was the one where he barely touched out his competitor, and he got the world record. And his goggles were half full of water. But he knew what to do. So
That's a
that's
great
something
example.
you can kind of play around with. Yeah, yeah. So you can play around with that, and whatever else you might think, like wearing a cap. If you're not used to wearing a cap, do that when you're practicing. Um, and then going off course, that's we talked about that. It's a really common one. Practice that. Go out in the open water and see what it's like to kind of go off and not be swimming in a straight line. It's pretty easy to do. So
And I
being
think that
bumped,
yeah, sorry,
go
just
ahead.
one thing I would add there is, how would you respond to going off course? One of the challenges we see a lot of people make, or one of the mistakes a lot of people make, is when they go off course, they think they have to make it up right away, and usually they end up
Hmm.
swimming extra hard and really breaking their technique, and they might get back into the line of the course um, eventually, but they've done it in a way that has really damaged them, their breathing. They've gotten out of rhythm, and then that can fuel a whole bunch of other mind games going on. So It's really,
Right.
really when you're going back off course, you want to get your sighting. There's some techniques around that, but you really want to be able to stay calm and just stay in your rhythm and trust the fact that maybe you've lost a couple of seconds, but it's better just to accept that rather than fight back and actually, really, really throw yourself off and throw your breathing off where you've are now may lose even more time, and rather than trying to gain that time back.
Yeah, yeah. Open water swimming often comes down to acceptance.
Yes,
It's a good word to use.
yes, it is.
So uh, yeah, I think that's it. And so being bumped, again, the same thing can happen. You get hit. You could even get hit fairly hard, and that can throw you off. And it's important to not take that personally and to accept it. And it's part of the deal. It's part of what open water swimming is. You're going to have some physical contact, and
Mm.
so just to kind of let that go, right after it happens.
Yeah, and just one thing I just want to back up one point where where we talk about planning your approach, and we had the question of is swimming in a river different than swimming in an ocean?
Hmm.
And that was from Megan. And I think really the key thing there is the currents could be an issue, but it could also be an issue in terms of something to be aware of, to plan for, to study in advance, or to be aware to do a little homework on to see what it is like. But also in a river, it might have more curves and turns, so you might want to practice that if possible, even if you're in the ocean, to practice maybe swimming around a curve, a gentle curve, or maybe it's a sharp curve, depending on what that is. So, but the current will be the main thing, and maybe the direction you need to swim in might be slightly different as well. And again, that's something that you can work into your practice, your training.
Right.
All right, so Kevin, what's the last T of smart?
Well, before we get to that last T, Sondasi asked or put in the questions, my wetsuit is trying to kill me. So I, I don't know I don't know exactly what you're saying there, but I think that means like it's too tight, and you might want to practice in your wetsuit, definitely before your race, and find one that works for you. I mean, not all wetsuits are exactly the same, so but it does take a little getting used to, no matter what kind of wetsuit it is.
Hmm.
So I would definitely not want to have that feeling where you're getting choked or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
How
so
about the
let's go to
T?
the last one, which the T, which is technique. And so mechanical components and skills needed to move efficiently and effectively in any type of water. So this is going to be and we put it last because it is important. This is part of the deal with open water swimming, but it's definitely going to be the last thing we get to, and so the first thing we want to talk about is your stroke. We mentioned finding your rhythm. And it's important to get into that rhythm because once you get there, then it's sort of like you're on autopilot and you don't have to think too much about your stroke. You're just kind of in that rhythm. And whatever that takes for you, it may be different. It may be counting your strokes. It may be just breathing the right, every 3 strokes, whatever it is. That's really important. And then the second part of that is the long versus short strokes. You hear people talking about you should have a long stroke in freestyle. And that's how I teach it. I teach freestyle. I teach kind of get into a long stroke because you've got, in any distance triathlon, you've got a long way to go. It's not just the swim, it's the swim, bike, run. And so you want to conserve energy. It's not important that you swim ultra fast in the swim portion. It's more important that you conserve the energy. So what do you want to do? Well, most of the time, the long strokes are really beneficial to triathletes. On the other hand, you can get into some ocean water situations where it's very choppy and you've got some pretty big waves, and the long strokes may not be the best thing for you. So it's important at that time to kind of shorten up your stroke and to be able to get through, around, or over these waves, and instead of just extending out and gliding and getting thrown around, potentially getting tossed around by the waves. So the next thing would be breathing, and that's one of the challenges that people have with stroke technique is the breathing technique. So in triathlon swimming, in an open water situation, the most important thing is to get plenty of air, whatever that takes. So if you haven't perfected your breathing technique on the day of your race, don't try to do anything that day. Just do what works. Do what you can do to get air. But if you've got time to practice and you can learn how to do bilateral breathing or breathing every 3 strokes, then that will help you even more, because that way you're balancing out your stroke, so you're more likely to go in a straighter line, and you can also navigate a little easier because you can see what's to your left, to your right. You can see not only people that are potentially around you, other swimmers, but also various landmarks, so you kind of know a little bit more of where you are. And the next thing is kick. So there's controversy right now with kicking in triathlon swimming, and I've traditionally said that the kick is not going to make you faster. If you work on your kick, if you practice with a kickboard and you try to build up your legs, you're not going to get much faster in freestyle because it's a very small part of your overall propulsion. But at the same time, kicking technique is very important. If you don't have the right kicking technique, you will really be hurting in a race, because you could either, one thing that a lot of people do is bend their knees a lot when they're kicking, and that's just using up energy, and it's not making you go faster, and it's not really doing anything for you. So if you're doing a lot of knee bending and kicking at the water, that's something you want to work on. So kicking light but in rhythm is the best way to go. And kicking, just one more thing to add there, kicking is not as much about propulsion as it is about technique and balance. So it's
Yeah.
helping you to rotate through the water and then stay balanced.
Yeah, I would certainly endorse that point as well. I'm certainly not a natural swimmer, and when I was training for my first Ironman, that's where I know working with you, Kevin, you got me really focused on a smaller, lighter kick as the first thing I needed to do, and that was a
Yeah.
great way to, and that made a tremendous difference in my energy that I was expending, and it made my stroke much more efficient. I saw a dramatic difference by starting there. Absolutely. All right, the next one's navigation. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, so a beginner mistake is to just put your head down and go and hope that kind of hope and pray that you're going the right direction, and that can cause a lot more problems. So we recommend that it's better to sight too much than to be lost on the course. So if you're a beginner, just sight as much as you can or as much as you need to, and then once you've once you've got that down, then just put your head down and get into your groove, and you'll kind of find the right balance as you get more experience. But as a beginner, definitely pop that head up in sight, and there's really great ways to do it so you're not losing a lot in your stroke, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Following works most of the time, but again, you probably heard this before. You could be following somebody that's going off course, so it's like the blind leading the blind, and it's definitely happened to me. And Chris, I'm sure that's happened to you before. And
Mm.
you think you're going the right way, and then all of a sudden you pop your head up, and everyone's going a different direction. So you definitely want to and again, that emphasizes the importance of sighting and looking forward as you swim.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever quite that bad where everybody's going in the other direction, but I have certainly seen people in races, and my heart goes out to those. I saw this one woman in a race, and she obviously had a left hook on her stroke, and she ended up coming very quickly back to shore, not that far away from the start line, without completely because she wasn't sighting at all, and
Yeah.
she swam in a half circle where everyone else is going straight ahead. So felt for her, but that's very rare. But usually, what it is, it's you go off, you drift off 10, 15 meters, and again, that really comes back in that moment. It really comes back to how do you manage yourself in that moment, because it comes back to
Right.
just getting finding your line and heading as straight as you can back to that line without panicking, without getting upset and frustrated at yourself. It's very easy to do that, but it's a skill you can develop to make sure that you stay calm and you stay connected to your stroke rather than letting your mind take you out of that rhythm. So, in summary, what we've run through here, and we appreciate we ran through this fairly quickly, we're really just kind of scratching the surface of a lot of these points. That the smart way is to really have a clear strategy that is based on the skills you need to develop in training and your best approach for your race. A mindset that is empowering, that is um, and developing the skill to create that mindset in any moment, because very closely linked is the mindset and avoiding the anxiety and frustration. Through managing that, you have a smart race plan, and underpinning all of these things is the technique that you work on as well. And so we love just to hear from those who are on the line, or just to get an example. If you could just drop into the chat box again, if you had to pick maybe what's your top one or two where you think that you would benefit from the most improvement in, or need a little maybe focus on a little bit more. Is it having the right strategy to come up with, pinpointing exactly what you need to improve? Or is it really more the mindset and the emotion side of things? Or is it really more fundamentally in your technique? Just drop in the question box there where your focus needs to be in in the coming weeks or coming months, and really focus what do you need to be better at coming into that race day. It looks like we've got a pretty good mix. Some saying definitely the mindset. Lisa's is all about her stroke. She's got the mindset and emotions down, or I assume that you've got those down. Not that you've got a down emotion. So a good mix across the board. Good mix across the board. So we know that
Yeah.
in a 1 hour webinar we certainly can't cover off everything. But Kevin and I were really, we've taken on a lot of questions over the last many months and through our experience, and we decided that we wanted to put something together to really help people in a more in-depth way and a more personalized way. And regardless of where people are, there's through online now we can reach a lot more people. And so what we wanted to share with you is what we've put together as an opportunity to go deeper and to get some specific feedback on your situation. And what we've created is what we refer to as Open Water Swim Success. It's a really unique course, a really unique training approach to make sure that you are succeeding on your terms in a way that allows you to see fast improvement and feel less frustration in the open water. And what it is, it's probably the only course that we've ever seen that employs both the physical and mental skills needed to improve in open water swimming. And that's both in training and in racing. This is going to be a live online course with both Kevin and I, and you can be anywhere in the world. It is online. You don't need to be with us to be swimming, because we're going to share some things with you that are maybe unique and you haven't maybe seen before in some courses. You get full access to us, and everything that we do is going to be recorded and available to you. So let's explain a little bit. Kevin, do you want us to explain what we've put together based on all the feedback that we've got and all the questions that we've received?
Sure, yeah, and this is our second time going through this, so we've kind of got even more feedback from everybody on what exactly they need and what we can do. So the first thing is there's going to be 4 live webinars and Q&A, so full access to us. They're going to be each Tuesday in June, so 4th, 11th, 18th, and 25th. And everything is recorded, so if you miss one, or even if you miss 2 or 3, you can still get all the information right away, and you can still ask us questions. So within 24 hours, we'll have it posted. And then each week we'll focus on specific aspects of technical and mental skills, and that'll give you the detailed strategies and techniques in an easy to follow interactive approach. So we want to emphasize that interactive. We want to make sure that you are working directly with us, and then at any time you can ask us questions, because we do have that chat room. And so it's also done with videos and visual aids. So we're not just going through slides like we just did, but we're also going to be working with videos and some specific unique visual aids to give you the clearest instruction. And then the live Q&A, taking your questions and listening to other people's questions. One of the feedback that we got over and over from the last one was that people liked being around other triathletes and other swimmers going through the same thing. So so the same challenges, some similar questions, and also just the kind of the similar anxieties and frustrations that others were going through at the same time.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned this, we have a private members forum with this course. So it's 24/7, so you can go in and ask us questions anytime. If you just had a race or you're just about to have a race, it's a good thing to use. And again, learn from other open water triathletes who have overcome the same struggles, or maybe are going through the same struggles. And then access from the start of the course for the entire season, and then also ongoing. So after you're done with the course, you can go back to the chat room, or you can go back to the forum and use it anytime you want and ask us questions at any point. So we start with, because we want to make this individualized and personalized, we start with a pre-course personal assessment. And it's a really important thing. So this will help identify your core problem and the key outcomes that you'll be looking for. And so the course content will be customized based on your input. So we're not, this one won't be exactly like the last course. It's going to be different. So you could even take the course again if you wanted to. I know we've got a couple of people on this call that were on the last one. So, and then the other thing is you can personalize it in terms of your time. So you may not be able to make the time every week when we have it. So you can watch the videos on your own time and then come back as needed. Come back to the forums and come back to asking us questions. So, and we kind of included a couple pictures there of what we're doing. We're not, you know, again, it's not just us lecturing and, you know, the students taking notes. It's actually an interactive approach, and we'll help you with videos. And then we're even going to offer with this one, and I think we mentioned this in a later slide, but we're going to offer the ability for you to send a video into us, and I'll do a stroke critique of your stroke. So if you want to do that, we're open for that too.
Yeah, and with each one as well, we accompany it with some downloadable documents that can really help you capture some of the key learnings, and most importantly, is apply some of the ideas directly to you, and then apply them directly in your next training session. Everything is about applying it as soon as possible to give you the fastest results. And our real goal overall is to give you the greatest gains in the shortest period of time. We're going to focus on the things that matter most to your performance and enjoyment. I think that's one of the things we learned from our last course, is that so many people are in a place where they are frustrated and want some difference. And sometimes just releasing some little things, making some subtle distinctions, and improving things in a little way can have a big impact on your enjoyment. And we're going to give you all the tools you need to develop those skills for lasting success, not just a one-off thing. But we have comments from students, from members from last year, and are still commenting how amazed they are at what a difference they're making in the water. And some of the feedback from the course we've had before, Mark Tanguay said, if you have any anxiety about the swim leg of your triathlon, or if you just want to feel more relaxed and positive about your swim, then take this course. Michelle said, I really like how quickly I could put new skills to work in a race situation and see improvement right away. This course will help you improve, no doubt about it. And Eleanor said, I now feel I have more positive attitude towards swimming, and I've already got great results. I feel very calm now, and I don't waste energy on stressing pre-race. I also no longer make excuses to avoid going to the pool to train. I found great value in the videos and really like the dialogue between Kevin and Chris. If you're thinking about taking this course, you have nothing to lose and everything to gain. And so I have to ask those who are on the line here, and watching this now, what would be different for you if you finally overcame your greatest swim weaknesses? And how would it feel to show up on race morning excited to get in the water? And how much more could you achieve when you eliminate the weight of worries and are now more energized by a new, more powerful stroke? And so just to recap everything that you're going to get, there's 4 live webinars and Q&A with Kevin and I. Everything is going to be recorded, so if you can't make it live, it's there for you within 24 hours and gives you all the time you need to watch it during the week and put things into practice. There's this member forum with 24/7 access for life. We still have questions coming in from past members who are still keen to make improvements as they go forward. You have the pre-course questionnaire, which will really set you off with a personal assessment, and it's loaded with additional videos and downloads to help really you to learn however you in the mode that you like to learn in. And as Kevin mentioned, you also get a personalized stroke analysis. If you're able to get a video of your stroke, of you swimming in a pool or in the ocean, if you can send that in to us, we'll absolutely give you some stroke analysis and give you some specific tips based on your current needs. So we're often asked, what would it take to work with us directly? And the reality is, Kevin and I are in separate cities, but we work closely together. And to hire us individually to cover all this material, for 2 of us for 4 hours each over that time period and 4 weeks, a full month, would cost well in advance of more than probably $1,000. But there's no way we're going to charge you $1,000 for this course. We're not even going to charge you $500, or even put the price tag at $250. You get everything in the entire course and lifetime access to all the materials for only 2 payments of $97. It really is an absolute bargain for the combination of mental and physical skills and techniques and the drills that we can get you to where you want to go. So if you're interested in this, we'd love to have you as part of this program. We'd love to have you part of it, and we know this can make a big difference for you. Is if you go to openwaterswimsuccess.com/webinar, and you can sign up right now. And then the only thing we'll say on top of this is, because we really want to make this personalized and make it really answering individual questions and customize the content to that, we do have to put a limit on the numbers, just for your benefit and for us to give you that personal attention. And so for this course, we want to limit it for 50 members. If we get more than that, we might run a second course a little later on, but we're going to limit this to 50 members only. So encourage you to click the link that's in your chat box right now in your side panel, and we'd love to have you there. If you have any questions about the course, we certainly want to answer any of those before you sign up, or if you want to ask us any questions beforehand, you can just the best way to reach us would be using Kevin's email, kevin@triswimcoach.com. And I think that's all we had for tonight. Kevin, is there anything else you wanted to share?
No, I just want to mention Chris, the link in the chat box. So if you're interested in signing up for this and working with us, just go ahead and click that link, and you'll be taken to the page that you can do that and find out more info.
Great. So hope to see you. You there. The course starts in a few weeks, and we look forward to having you as part of this part of the program for this time around, and really make this a fantastic and breakthrough season for you in triathlon.
Yeah. Thanks everyone for tuning in here and listening. Really appreciate you coming in, and yeah, look forward to working with you, whoever ends up with us. So it'll be great fun, and I'm sure we'll get a lot accomplished.
Yeah, if you're still on and you have any additional questions for us, whether it's for the course or questions in general, then just drop them into the chat box now, and we'll either can stay on for a few more minutes to answer them, or we will answer them through our websites or through our social media, and we'll send a list, an email out to everybody to let them know where they can find those answers. But as Kevin said, thank you for joining us today, and we wish you all the best, and we'll hope to see you in the course. So we had a question here from Jerry about whether we run this monthly. And our intention right now, our plan right now, is to run it in the month of June. We know that that's where most people are going to be really ramping up their season. And depending on demand, we will look at running it again later in this year, or even during the summer for those in the northern hemisphere, that is. So that's where we sit with that right now.
And Jerry also asked how long the video is available. The videos in the course are available for a lifetime, so you can access them. If you join our course and you take it 5 years from now, if you race or something, you want to look back, you log back in and they're yours. So, and as far as this video, as far as the recording of this webinar, we're just going to have it up for a limited time, but anyone that's was signed up for this webinar will get access to it.
And Christina asked, what can you do to overcome your fear of mass starts? That's all about managing your state. It's all about what you're focusing on, what story you're telling yourself. And so, without knowing a little bit more detail there, I would get you to think about, what are you focusing on that's creating that feeling of fear within you. Remember, your emotions are caused by your thoughts. So what are you focusing on? What is your thinking being directed to? And then counter that with thinking, well, how would I like to feel in order to create that feeling? What should I be focusing on? Now, so that helps you do it from a logical or intellectual way. Sometimes I recognize that is a challenge to switch. So If Christine, if you, I'm not sure if you're going to sign up for the course, but we're definitely going to cover that off in detail in the course. And otherwise, you can drop me an email. Drop me an email at chris@triathletemind.com, and I can answer any more specific questions you have on that. But we'd love to see you in the course if that's something you're interested in. And a similar question we had from Sundasi earlier at the start is, how do I overcome jitters when swimming? Despite the fact I'm a strong swimmer, experienced in open water, yet feel that I can't swim a stroke in competition or events. Again, there's something going on with your thought patterns there. And so do the same thing. Analyze what are you really thinking about and focusing on, and what do you want to turn your attention to? I know that might be a simplistic answer, but it's a great place to start. And if you have any deeper questions, then please do drop me an email and I can follow up with you. But again, we're going to cover that in great detail and give some specific drills, some specific techniques, and a lot of proven ways that people who have been in that exact situation have used to make a dramatic difference in how they approach every single race and really get excited about the race and come from a really empowered place.
So going back to the comment from Sundasi, says that my wetsuit is trying to kill me. Um, I guess it's a she. She said that it was more of a mental thing, not that the suit didn't fit, but it was just sort of like feeling enclosed. And someone else said something about feeling claustrophobic in a wetsuit. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's again, it's a common one that comes up. Again, that feeling, it doesn't really matter, what that feeling is, but it all comes from thoughts, and it maybe, there may be some past experiences there that help fuel that. But part of it is going to get comfortable. One thing to try, and this now may sound a little bizarre, but it's just to get used to what that feeling is like to have that tight wetsuit on. And I mean doing that on dry land, maybe even at home. And just to get get used to that sensation is putting the wetsuit on halfway and getting used to what that really feels like around the legs. Because also what happens is usually the time that people get into their wetsuit is just before a race, literally, 20 minutes beforehand. And maybe they're already in a rush that morning, or maybe a bit jittery before the race. So you're combining a raised heart rate and a shortening of breath in a tight enclosed environment. So you kind of got a kind of double whammy going on there. So getting used to what it actually feels like on your body, um, off land or on land, can be a place to start. The second thing is that if you're really feeling claustrophobic around that, a big thing is to help relax you is taking deep breaths, deep diaphragmatic breaths, where that can really help you relax you. You may not want to start the race in a relaxed state, a totally relaxed state, but it may be what you need to do in order to get to a place that is more empowering for you. So analyze, become a little bit of a amateur detective and dig a little deeper into what are the thoughts that you're going through your mind that make you feel that emotion, and start to unpack that a little bit and think about what could you turn your attention to and how could you become more comfortable with that wetsuit on. We also got another question from Jerry saying, I'm in Toronto and I'll go on vacation and just try to catch up. With that work? Absolutely, Jerry. We had a lot of people go through the course last year who weren't able to attend any of the live sessions. But as Kevin said, it's there for life. And certainly we can ask, as is the forum access, and you can ask questions to us at any point in time on any of the content covered in the recordings. And the recordings are also going to be available on your devices, your mobile or your tablet, so you can kind of access them wherever you are, where you've got internet access. Kevin, we got one from John. Any quick tips for improving my catch and pull? If you saw that one, my right arm seems to know what's going on, but I find I have a tendency to catch further out and down with the
Quick
left,
tips for improving.
and have a tendency to do more of a straight pull through with it, especially when
Yeah,
competing.
well, yeah, it's one of the first things that I start with is focusing on that high elbow catch. So just it's hard to do in a quick few minutes here, but basically you want to extend your arm out on your when you start your pull, and then your elbow. That's the first thing you do. So you want to bend your elbow and think of it like pulling. What helps a lot of people is think of like pulling over a barrel. So you're not exactly, you don't want your arm straight out. You want your arm bent. You want your elbow bent, but then you're basically pulling out and then straight back. So it's much easier to see on a video, and we'll have that in the course. We'll have pictures and videos to kind of explain these things. But that is a really good question because that's one of the most important parts of freestyle is getting the high elbow pull, the high elbow catch down.
Another question
Okay,
from,
looks like we.
yeah, just one more from Marie, saying, or she was saying the benefit she would gain is I'd be able to get more nutrition and hydration if I wasn't anxious, spend more energy on the technique and not on worrying. Absolutely, absolutely. And if you're one who's spending time on worrying and spending energy on worrying, is again, we'll go into that in great detail in the course. And it's probably one of the biggest areas where people felt some dramatic improvement is how they manage their own state and really saw dramatic improvement in their technique, but also in their ability to take on that hydration and nutrition.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's all the questions we have for tonight. So again, for those of you who are remaining online, really appreciate your time and interest in this topic, and would love to see you in the course if that's something that interests you. So we will see you on the other side.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Good chatting, and we'll see you soon.
Okay, cheers, bye bye.
Cheers.